Hello world and welcome back to a new Minecraft series where we are today going to be covering Botania. This series of Botania is going to be all based in the 1.16.5 version, and we're going to start off with everyone's favourite book, the Lexica Botania. This is made with just one oak sapling or any type of sapling and one book, and this will give you your Lexica Botania. The Lexica Botania is basically your guide to this mod, and inside of it will tell you everything you need to know about it. It's got many different chapters and you're going to need this as you progress. As you can see, some things are actually going to be locked inside of here, so the more you progress, the more you will actually figure out. As you see here, I'm at 192 out of 245. Moving on, we have got some basic knowledge of Botania. In the world, there are going to be up to 16 different types of coloured flowers inside of Botania. All of these different flowers can be found inside the world, naturally generating, and each of them is going to give you their respective coloured petals when put inside of a crafting table, like we have over here. Here we have the magic orange flower, and it's giving us some petals, 2 to be exact. As well as that, there are other things deep underground. There are the same 16 coloured mushrooms, and these mushrooms can be used in crafts as a substitute for petals. Early on, you're going to probably want a couple of these different petals, as these petals are going to be used to create every single type of flower that is inside of Botania, so you're going to need all the different colours. Now, a very good way of getting these colours is by first making a pestle and mortar. The pestle and mortar is made with one stick, one oak plank and one bowl, and this will just give you one pestle and mortar. The pestle and mortar can take any petal and actually turn it into its respective dye. In this case, we've got an orange petal turning into orange dye, and it's a 1-to-1 recipe. Now, using 4 of any type of dye, obviously you can make dye the vanilla way if you so wish, and 1 bone meal, you can get up to 3 floral fertilizer, as you see here. Now, floral fertilizer is very powerful, as when you right click it on the grass, similar to bone meal, it's going to just spawn a load of regular Botania plants. So the more we spam on the ground, the more of every single type of color you can get. So this is a very good way of getting all your different colors early on. As well as this, you can also take some fertilizer and right click on all of these flowers, and this is going to give you the tall variant. Now, if you use yourselves a set of shears and then destroy them with your shears, you'll actually be able to get the tooled flower color type, and then you'll be able to craft double the amount of petals in your crafting table. Now, obviously, I have to do this in survival mode, so I can actually get the tall flowers. Now, if we go into one of these crafting tables here, let's just get a brand new one. And then I place my tall flower in here, we see that we now get 4 blue petals instead of just 2 like you did with the regular plant. Now, a little cool way of actually keeping on top of all these petals is that you can actually put 9 of them together, and it's going to make yourselves a block of that colour, and also this can be reversed back to your regular petals. But if you don't like the way of actually using blocks as a way of storing it, what you can do is make a flower pouch. A flower pouch is made with any coloured petal or any type of mushroom that you find deep underground, and 5 pieces of wool in this triangle shape, and this will give you your flower pouch. The flower pouch, when you right click, is going to give you 16 inventory slots for all the different types of flowers inside of Botania. However, you notice that none of these are actually the tall variant, so you can only do it with the regular type of flower. It gives you a count as well, so obviously if we have some of these in our inventory, what we can do is then open up our pouch and start placing them inside, and they'll go into their respective slots. Now we know a little bit more about the basic functionalities of petals. Now we want to make our first actual structure, and that's the Petal Apothecary. The Petal Apothecary is made with 4 cobblestone in a T shape here on the bottom, 2 cobblestone slabs, and then any coloured petal or mushroom that you find deep underground. Now you'll get 1 of these for the craft, and the Petal Apothecary is essentially going to be your way of making any type of flower inside of Botania. When actually creating it, you can actually further decorate it in some other way. If I type in apothecary down here, as you see, there are many different types of apothecaries you can have, and all you have to do is cover your default apothecary in a different type of block, which you can get later on in the mod in order to give yourselves just a different color apothecary. Now, the basic functions of the apothecary is that you're always going to need some water inside, so you just simply right click a bucket of water into there, and then you're going to need a seed. A seed is always a way of completing a craft. Now, besides that, you're going to need your different types of petals, and depending on what petals you put inside is going to give you a different result. The first thing we're going to make is this one over here, a pure daisy. So to make this, you're going to need to have actually 4 of these petals here. So all we're going to do is throw 1 in, And you'll see we have the petal just inside, and there's also just now a floating white petal in front of it every time we look at the apothecary. Throw another one in, it adds, and so on and so forth. And when you have enough to complete a craft, we can then throw in our seed to complete it, as you see there. So to make the pure daisy, you just need 4 white petals and then throw in a seed. It'll make this sound, and then you'll get yourself a pure daisy. And it's also, as you see, using up your water. So you're gonna have to you maybe want to have a bit of a source near you so you can fill it up repeatedly. But now, what does the pure daisy do? As you see here, I've actually got this surrounded by 2 different types of items. We've got stone, regular stone, and logs. This can be any type of logs. Now, what we're going to do is just surround this pure daisy in the exact same way as it's shown. Now, you don't have to do it 4 and 4. You could do completely 8 all stone, completely 8 all logs. You could just do 1 or 2 or 3. You don't have to fill it all entirely, but obviously this is the best way. Now, what the pure daisy is doing is essentially taking mana just from like the environment and turning these into different types of blocks. Stone is going to turn into living rock, and wood is going to turn into living wood, as you see here. Living rock and living wood. It takes a little bit of time. We may catch it, but we'll leave it for now. But here are our 2 different types. If you see them, they will change into these 2 different types of blocks. First, we're going to cover a little bit of the living wood. The first thing we're going to want to do is actually make a wand of the forest. To make the wand of the forest, you're first going to need 2 living wood to make some living twig, and this living wood twig, you can only get 1 twig per 2 wood. So you're going to want this process to happen quite regularly. Next, you take 3 of your living wood twigs and any 2 coloured petals that you would like to give you a wand of the forest. Now, as you see here, we've got 1 type. If I actually just switch these around, the petals change. So depending on how you have these oriented and what colours you have, is going to give you a different wand of the forest. Now, checking back over here, I just heard it click, and these 2 have now changed into their respective blocks. We're going to cover a little bit more about the wand of the forest soon, but first we're going to make some other items. One is going to be using the living rock to actually give us a mana pool. The mana pool is essentially going to be a way of storing our mana energy, which we're going to create shortly, and keeping it in one place. Mainly, think of it sort of like a battery when it comes to Botania. This is crafted with just 5 living rock, as you see here, and this will give you a mana pool. As I say, the mana pool is a way of storing a large amount of mana, but there is actually a second type, and that is a diluted mana pool that is made the exact same way, but with living rock half slabs. And the diluted living rock mana pool is a way of storing a very small amount of mana, where the standard mana pool is going to generate and hold, not generate, it's going to hold a large amount of mana. But in order to get mana into this pool, you're going to need something else, which is a mana spreader. This is going to use 7 living wood like this and any coloured petal or mushroom in the centre here to give you the mana spreader, as you see here. So now that gives us everything we need in order to actually store and transfer mana around the world, but now we need a way of actually generating it. To start Botania, there are going to be 2 different types of plants that you're going to be using most likely first off. Now, there are many more advanced ways of creating mana out of different flowers, but obviously we'll unlock those the further we get down. But these are the 2 starters. First, we've got the endoflame, and second, we've got the hydrogenous. The endoflame we're going to cover first. This is created in apothecary, as all flowers. Of course, we're going to need some water in there. This is created with 2 brown petals, so let me get 2 of those there. Throw them in. We're then going to need 1 red flower, 1 light grey flower, and then we need our seed to finish it, and this will give us our endoflame. Now, the endoflame we're going to cover very shortly. Next up, we have got the hydrogenous. This is made very similarly. We're going to just take 2 cyan, as we see here, and we're going to take 2 blue petals as well, throw them into our water here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to need another seed, and this gives us our hydrogenous. So here I've got our basic setup. Let's cover over the endoflame first, as it's the simplest one to have. The endoflame is essentially going to consume any burnable items that you can give it, and it's going to generate mana. For us example, we're going to be using some coal blocks. So if we drop down a coal block here, it's going to absorb this coal block and then start generating mana. If we take our wand of the forest here, which I actually forgot to grab, and hover over our endoflame, we can see 2 different things. One is its internal buffer, which means if this wasn't actually sending mana anywhere, this bar under the word endoflame would fill up with its internal buffer. As well as that, we have a mana spreader with a tick onto the side, and that means the endoflame is connected to a mana spreader, which is over here. By default, the endoflame is going to connect automatically to any mana spreader nearby, and it's always going to choose the closest if you have multiple. So if I take this one here, it's now going to actually change where it's sending the mana. It's going to be sending it to this closest one instead of the further one. Now, as I say, the endo flame can actually burn up any sort of items that it can, so that means woods, sticks, wooden stairs, anything like that can be used, regular coal, charcoal. However, it cannot burn things that would leave an item behind in a furnace, i.e. a lava bucket, as that would leave a bucket behind, so a lava bucket does not work on the endo flame. As well as that, if you're wondering about burn rates, it says in the book that the endo flame is going to burn things at half the rate as it would in a furnace. So if you took a regular piece of coal and you know that actually smelts 8 items, think of it as the endo flame is only being able to smelt 4 items. That's the best way I think of thinking about it. Next up, we've got our hydrogenous, and I know I'm pretty much pronouncing that right, but hydrogenous sounds good. Now, this is going to actually suck in any water that is in a 3x3 area of it. Now, these must all be on the same level as you see here. Now, the reason I have it so close is that the hydrogenous is not going to be able to see the mana spreader if I have it a little bit further away, so it's so close here, so it has a direct link, as you see there. Now, as this is actually sucking up main water sources, you don't actually notice it doing it because it's actually becoming a brand new source block after it's been used. Now, quick jump cut there because I just realized I actually built this wrong. As I said, this is going to actually consume things in a 3x3 area of it, so it's just going to take in the corners here. But because I have these other bits of water on the edge, these corners are actually turning it into source blocks. A little bit of a mistake there. But yes, as I say, the hydrogenous has to be quite close to the mana spreader, otherwise it won't actually see it. Now, something else about this hydrogenous is that it doesn't last forever. Obviously, this is going to passively give us energy over time, but in order to ways of not just spamming these into the world, they've given this a little bit of a durability. So if I break this now, we see we have a durability bar. Roughly, these hydrogenuses need to be replaced every 3 days. So after 3 days, this is actually going to break and a new one's going to have to be placed. It's different to the endo flame, but similar in the same sort of respect. This is going to obviously use up fuel, but the plant's never going to break. This doesn't need any fuel, but eventually the plant will break. Now, the last thing we need to cover is a little bit more about the mana pool. When you place it down, it's going to place facing towards you, so the way it's always going to shoot its pointer towards you, but you can actually manually set things. So with the Wand of the Forest, if we scroll onto it, you see it says bind mode. There's also, if you hold shift, you can right click and change it to function mode, but we're not going over function mode today. So with the bind mode, what we can do is hold shift and right click on our mana spreader. That's going to select this block, and then we can target it onto something, which we are going to target it onto our mana pool there, as you see here. Now the mana spreader is facing directly. You can also have this face any other type of block, as you see here, and it will just change accordingly, but it won't actually fire a pulse unless it's firing at something that can actually receive mana. The same thing can also be done with the flowers. So this endo flame is actually a little bit too far away from this mana spreader by default, so if I hold right click, it will show this outline, means it's selected, and then we can right click on our mana spreader there, and we saw a little beam there to show that it's connected. Similar thing we've done with the hydrogenous here, right click that, then on this, and we have that little bit of connection there. Now this, as you see, as we look over the mana spreader, it's filling up a little bit, and then once it gets to a certain point, it shoots a beam of mana into this pool here. So if we can only see this when we have our mana spreader, our Wand of the Forest in our hand, sorry. The same thing goes for our mana pool here. If we scroll over it, it actually tells us how much is in this. Now the mana pool can hold a hell of a lot amount of mana, so that's why you're not going to see this bar fill up very quickly. Now that's the basics when it comes to generating mana, but how about we actually use this mana in some way? And this is the most basic way you could use mana to begin with. Now, to use the mana pool itself, you can simply drop things into it and it will simply convert it into something else, but we're going to cover all those different things as we progress through the series. But the first thing we're going to do is actually take an ender pearl and then take our mana in our mana pool here. As you see here, when we scroll or look over our mana pool, it will tell us what it can do. We drop this inside and it turns into a mana pearl. You can get mana diamonds, mana steel, blah blah blah. There's many things you can do. Later on you can even use this to transmute things into other things, but we're not going to cover all that today. The first thing we're going to make, and that is going to be a mana tablet. The mana tablet is going to require the mana pearl, which we just made, and 8 living rock round the circle. Now the mana tablet is a way of actually storing our mana from inside our pool into this tablet and we can carry it around with us. Now if we hold our wand of the forest, by default it probably won't look like this. If I hold shift and right click, you'll see something like this. Underneath the bar it says mana tablet to pool. Now if we throw our tablet down onto here, nothing's going to happen, but if you hold shift and right click, it will say that the mana pool is going into the mana tablet, as we see here. So in the corner here we now have a little bit of mana. If we hover over it, above the mana bar, mana tablet toolbar, there's a little bar that says how full it is, as well as underneath here, of course. Now, of course, you can put this back into the pool as well. If you hold shift and right click, it will start draining the mana tablet back into the pool. But we want this in there for now. Now, because I am in creative, we're going to get ourselves a creative tablet here just to make things a little bit easier, of course. Now, some very early game tools, let's cover them. Out of living wood, you can make living wood twigs, and living wood itself, you can make all the basic tools, i.e. a pickaxe. You can make up to 6 different tools, being the wooden pickaxe, hoe, sword, shovel, axe, as well as shears. Wooden shears doesn't make sense to me, but that's something you can create. Now you can actually combine 5 of these tools in any order, it doesn't have to be in this order, and everything excluding the shears, in order to make the living wood AIOT, which I don't know what that stands for, but it's everything in one tool. That's exactly what it says. It must be anything in one tool. Now, as it suggests, this is actually going to do everything that you would like. Now, it's going to break dirt, it's going to break stone, it's going to be able to till the grass, and it's going to break down your trees as well with the axe. As well as that, it's going to be a pretty handy weapon. But nothing is incredibly special when it comes to these tools. Wood is still going to act the same way as vanilla wood. However, the wooden tools can have a higher enchantability as vanilla wooden tools. As well as that, all damage is actually done through mana. So every time you actually break a block and a bit of mana goes through it, it's actually going to not damage it in any way. If we didn't have our mana tool, then we started breaking things, then the durability would start going down. But if we have this mana tablet in our inventory, it will actually repair it slowly. Of course, I would skip the wooden tools and go straight to the stone variants, where it's all exactly the same crafts, except you're using living rock instead of living wood, and the exact same tools can be made, including the shears. Putting 5 of them together will obviously give you the living rock AIOT, and everything else still applies. It's going to be a little bit quicker and give you a little bit more damage, and again it's got higher enchantability, as well as its durability can be repaired through mana in your mana tablet. Now for today, that is everything we're going to be covering inside of Botania. Obviously we're going to be covering a lot more in-depth things later on in the series, but if this video helped you out in any way, shape or form, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It would really help me out, and ring the bell button to stay notified when these videos go live. But until next time guys, take care.